Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Don Crawley. He is the founder of the Compassionate Geek, which focuses on helping IT professionals blend technical skills with empathy and effective communication to improve customer service and client interactions. So what is this, how does his business work and what kind of services does he provide and what does he do about pricing? A bunch of questions I got. So let's get into getting some answers. Welcome to Teach the Geek Interviews, Don.
Well, thank you. I'm pleased to be here, Neil. This is an honor, and I love what you're doing.
Thank you. So when it comes to the I guess the topic that you speak on that your business is revolves around, where did that interest come from?
Well, that's a great question. It came out of geekness. I had been teaching advanced technical training like Cisco router configuration, Cisco firewall configuration, how to build a Linux server, bind DNS. I mean, really geeky, nerdy stuff. And I'd done some training for the state of Washington, and it was a good fit. You know how sometimes it's a good fit, they like you, you like them. Well, this was a good fit. And they came to me after the bind DNS training and said, we need customer service training for our IT staff. And we've tried having regular customer service trainers come in. They were very good, but they didn't understand IT culture. And we wonder if you could perhaps develop a customer service class for IT people from a perspective of an IT person, from the perspective of a geek. And I said, absolutely. And so I collaborated with my friend Paul Sennis, who has an MBA in leadership, and he's a retired naval aviator. He's all about leadership and relationships. And we collaborated and we created this course. And it was successful after we presented. It was very successful. And so we made it available to other clients. And pretty soon the phone started ringing. And all of a sudden I'm doing this training for Facebook and the University of Maryland and Cadence Design Systems and all these different companies, some of whom you'd know, some of whom you wouldn't, but it became very popular. And pretty soon I was doing customer service training for IT people more than technical training, to the point where today this is all I do. I don't do any technical training anymore. And the name Compassionate Geek, if I can anticipate a question, came out of a Cisco router class when we were, I don't remember the context, but we were just talking about taking care of customers and some of the frustrations that go with that. And one of the guys in the class said, "Oh, we're just a bunch of compassionate geeks." And bingo, the light flashed above my head, and the Compassionate Geek was born. So that's where it came from. It grew organically from client requests, and the name came organically out of a technical class.
Nice. I'm glad that you eventually settled on that name. You know, Teach the Geek wasn't the initial name of what I do. It was we all can be great speakers. I'm
Oh,
so
this is way better. Teach the Geek is way better.
I know. It was actually somebody I met on LinkedIn, funny enough. I was sharing what I was planning on doing, and when I told her the name, she said, you know, what do you think about Teach the Geek? I thought, well, that sounds a lot better.
All right. Well, Neil, let me underscore what you just said. It sounds a lot better because I remember Teach the Geek and I've already forgotten the original name of the class. So,
I guess it pays to go talk to people as opposed to just going with what you want to do
oh,
right away.
you know it. You know it.
Don, when it comes to speaking, I think when people hear the word professional speaker, they think of keynotes. But it sounds like you do a lot of other things besides keynotes. So just for the people who are listening or watching our conversation, what type of services do you provide?
Sure. So I do keynotes and I'm happy to do that. And I've spoken in front of large audiences at groups like IT Nation. But I also do a lot of training. For example, just this past Monday, what's today? Today's Thursday. So yeah, Monday, I was in Washington, D.C., working with a government agency on Compassionate Geek training. We have a course called Customer Service Secrets of Successful IT Pros. And so they had asked me to come and present that. But mainly, what I do today is online on demand training, where we have a course. If you go to compassionategeek.com, do you mind that I promote it?
Of course not.
Okay, so if you go to compassionategeek.com, you'll find our online on demand training. And my main revenue source, and that's what I do. And we offer hybrids, so sometimes people will want to have a combination of the on-demand training along with in-person training or a Zoom training event or a kickoff keynote. There are various permutations of it, but fundamentally, what I do mostly today is the online on-demand. We do some in-person training and some keynotes and some conference speaking too.
Oh, wow. Did the online training, did that stem because of the pandemic, or were you doing that beforehand?
Great question, and the answer is yes to both. So, um, it originally started when I had a client who asked me to put together an online on-demand course, and that was maybe 2 years before the pandemic. And so we had already put it in place. We created the training, put it in place. We were offering it. It was actually being pretty successful, just as it was back then. And then when the pandemic hit, it frankly it saved our bacon because we were able to stay in business, stay afloat, thanks to the on-demand training, which took a huge spike, as you can imagine, when the pandemic hit.
Yeah, for sure. For the people who are listening or watching our conversation done, and they have aspirations to become a professional speaker, perhaps they've developed whatever their speaking topic is, and now they really want to get out there and be a speaker. What do they need to have in place for them to be seen as a professional speaker?
Wow, that's a huge question, Neil. I'm working on a book right now, a new book. It'll be my ninth, and one of the things that agents, literary agents, and publishers want is the same thing that you need as a speaker, and that is a platform. So you have to have a platform. You have to be posting on LinkedIn or, for most business purposes, it's LinkedIn, but some people have been very successful using Instagram or Facebook or X or Pinterest. You name the platform, but you have to have a platform. And a blog would help because people are going to want to know about you. And I have a YouTube channel. Actually, I have two YouTube channels, and neither one is huge, but one has 13,000 subscribers and the other has 40 some thousand subscribers. And people watch my videos and they get an idea of what I'm about and whether they think I would be a good fit for their event or for their company based on those videos. And so if you're wanting to start as a professional speaker, and Neil, let me just take a quick side trip. There's a big difference between being a public speaker and a professional speaker. There are lots and lots of public speakers. There are not a lot of professional speakers, people who are paid to speak, who make a full-time living as a speaker. So a professional speaker is a public speaker, but a public speaker is not necessarily a professional speaker. So we're talking, to answer your question, we're talking about professional speakers. So you have to have a way for them to feel comfortable with you before they even pick up the phone to call you to have a discussion about whether you might be a good fit.
Yeah.
So I think it starts with a platform. And in some of your materials, you talked about the importance of marketing, and the platform is the start of marketing. And then you have to find your ways of reaching your potential clients, whether that's through free speaking at various events that they might be having or doing a direct mail campaign, but you have to have a marketing plan. So maybe if we could back up even a little bit further, I would say that the most important thing for anyone who aspires to be a professional speaker is to develop a business plan because it's your business, it's your marketing acumen, it's your business acumen that allows you to have the privilege of speaking to people. So the business comes first and then the speaking. And most people do it backwards. I did. And what I know now after having been a professional speaker for 27 years, 27, 28 years, is that the business part comes first.
You're absolutely right. I mean,
Yeah.
I was a member of Toastmasters for a number of years, and it's a great platform for practicing
Yes.
giving presentations. And there
Yeah,
are a lot of
absolutely.
and there's a lot of people that are a member of Toastmasters. They're really great speakers. They use the stage well. Their hand gestures are great. They have all the vocal variety. But if you were to tell them, well, okay, now put this out there so that people are willing to pay you to speak in front of their audiences, well, kind of a deer in headlights. Ghostbusters doesn't
Yeah.
really help you with that. It's really you have to find other outlets to help you in developing the actual business of speaking. So
Yeah.
actually that leads me to I guess that question. What outlets can aspiring speakers go to help them develop the business of speaking?
Well, I think, first of all, just to underscore what you said, Toastmasters is a wonderful place to work on the craft of speaking, the stage craft. And so you have to have that, obviously. You have to be a good speaker in order to get booked. And as far as going and developing the business, another mistake that a lot of aspiring or beginning speakers make is they try to find a speaker's bureau. And the bureaus aren't interested in you until you're booking speeches at about $15,000 a speech. So that's just time wasted trying to contact a speakers bureau or a manager or an agent. They're not interested in you until you don't need them. So it's sort of like, going to the bank for a loan. The bank won't loan you money until you don't need it. But to build your business, a lot of people will start with civic groups like Rotary and or Optimist groups or chambers of commerce, and they'll do free speeches. But that's a place where you can get video that you can then turn into a demo reel, and that's something that you can then share with people in order to get them interested. And there's all kinds of IT conferences, many of which have no budget for speakers, but it's still an opportunity for you as an aspiring speaker to make connections, to network and to get to know people and to practice your craft. So I'd say just get out and network, get on LinkedIn, publish articles, get known, and recognize that it's a long slog for most people to build their business.
Yeah, I certainly take your point about aspiring speakers thinking that they can just get a speaker bureau to represent them,
Ain't
and
gonna
they'll
happen.
and they'll just get engagements that way. The I think a lot of times there's a misconception from what a speaker bureau actually is. So for the people who are listening or watching to this conversation, a speaker bureau's job is not to get you gigs necessarily. It's to get their client, who is the one requesting the gig, a speaker. And that
Yeah,
speaker could be you, but it could be a whole bunch of other people too. The speaker bureaus have hundreds, maybe even thousands of people in their database. So if they
yeah,
have they have a client that says we want a leadership speaker, they can recommend several speakers from their database. And one of those people could be you, but you are in competition with those other people. It's not as if they're going to say, "Oh, you need a leadership speaker. You should pick this person." That just typically doesn't happen.
yeah. That's exactly right. And frankly, if you're a speakers bureau and you have a client who's willing to pay 15, 20, $50,000 for a speaker, are you going to go with somebody who's tested and known? Or are you going to go with somebody that you've never heard of before who's just starting their career? And I think the answer is obvious.
100%. Don, when it comes to people becoming speakers, I think you did mention this. A lot of the work starts with networking. There's a whole lot of outbound that you have to do, reaching out to people.
Yeah.
In the event that you reach out to those people, but you don't hear back, how do you handle following up with people?
Well, you don't hear back way more often than you do. So, uh, you know, I don't do outbound marketing now, and what I've found in the past is that it wasn't very effective. What we do is inbound marketing. So we do SEO management. I have a company called SMA Digital Media that does the SEO, search engine optimization. We also do pay per click, where we try to place ourselves in uh, Google search results. So it's all inbound as opposed to outbound. And my sense is that outbound marketing is old news. It's not how people do things today. I mean, you can try sending out postcards, but if you're not known, unless you have some really unique niche that is not being well served otherwise. I mean, let's say that you want to be a motivational speaker. Well, good Lord Almighty, there's a gazillion motivational speakers out there, and there's a half a gazillion who are more experienced and been more successful and better known than you are. And so why on earth would you send a postcard or a letter to somebody saying, "Hey, I want to be a motivational speaker at your next XYZ conference," and expect to get a result? And people are so overwhelmed right now with just the workplace is so busy and people are overworked that they're just not going to take time to do that. So my comment, and there are probably people who are watching this who would disagree with it, and that's fine. If you have success with it, that's what you should do. But my sense is that what you need to do is you need to find a way to appear relevant in social media and in conferences and get out and meet people and shake hands and speak for free where you can and get referrals, and it's going to take a while. It's not an overnight success thing. One thing that I did that was very helpful for me, and I've seen other people do this as well. Linda Larson is a good example of that, who's a very, very successful speaker, National Speakers Association Hall of Fame speaker. She's just great. But she also started as a skill path trainer, as did I, as did a lot of people. And so you could work for Skill Path or Fred Pryor or one of those organizations, and they don't pay very much, but it's an opportunity for you to get out and get known. You can make some videos, you can hone your craft, and you can start to learn some of the where your customers are, and then start to shake hands and kiss babies and do the politician thing.
What is for the people that are listening or watching it that don't know about Skill Path or and that other one you mentioned? What exactly does working with them entail?
Well, it's grueling. They're very tough, but the other one was Fred Pryor, who actually created the 1 day seminar model. But they're training companies, and they provide a wide variety of business skills training and sometimes technical training as well. And they don't pay very well. I mean, you may make a few $100s a day, but you can make money from back of the room sales. So you learn the process of doing presentations from the front of the room to get people to buy books at the back. And you learn timing, you learn pacing, you learn gestures, you get to practice all the things that Toastmasters teaches you. But they're big training companies that provide a variety of training programs worldwide.
Okay, well, it's good to know. When it comes to what you offer your clients done, how do you go about pricing your services?
Hmm. That's a that's a tough question. Let me think for a second. I should have given that some thought before we started. Uh, First of all, I look at what my competitors are doing. And I don't price based on price. I price based on value. So I don't want to compete with you or anybody else on price. If we compete on price, then everybody loses. But instead, the value that I bring. And I mean, I'm a published author. I'm a tenured speaker. I've done more than 1,200 presentations worldwide over the last 15 years or something like that. Well, more than that, 25 years, however long it's been. Um, and so what I know is that I bring tremendous value to the organizations that hire me to speak. But I couldn't start off at the fees that I charge now because I wasn't known. I didn't have my books. And so you have to look at the value that you bring to the organization, and you're probably going to underprice yourself when you first get started, but gradually you'll start to understand what is the value that you bring and what people are willing to pay for that, and in order to feel like they're getting good value. Does that answer your question? I feel like I kind of sidestepped it, but I didn't mean to.
I know. I'm sure that's quite helpful. I mean, for people who are aspiring, I get the sense that, well, I'm a great speaker. I think I'm a great speaker, and I was a member of my Toastmasters group, and I often got really good feedback. So now I want to make it as a professional speaker, but I have no clue as to what to charge. And so, what can I?
Yeah.
How do I figure that out? And that's the main reason I asked the question.
Yeah, yeah. So can I address something you just said about people who say, I think I'm a good speaker?
Sure.
You're probably not. And everybody comes up every time I speak. I have somebody come up to me and say, I'm a pretty good speaker, and I'm thinking about becoming professional. And I always say, well, have you had coaching? Well, no. I said, well, then you're not a pretty good speaker. And just understand that you have no concept of what this business is about. It is a business. And just because you've had some family and friends and maybe even some associates at work tell you that you're a good speaker, that doesn't mean you are. And that doesn't mean that somebody's going to pay you 5,000, 10,000, 25,000, whatever the number is, to give a speech. I mean, it's a very complicated, very sophisticated, very competitive, very, very difficult business.
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, the proof's in the pudding, really. If you're able to get engagements consistently, you must be doing something right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
People speak with their wallet, don't they?
indeed, they do.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I think about what you're doing, Neil, and you're working with technical people on improving their customers. Let me try that again. You're working with technical people on improving their speaking skills, and you're that coach that people need that they don't even realize they need.
Yeah, a lot of times that may very well be the case. It certainly was when I first started giving presentations, and I saw the fact that I was getting. So I had, when I first started giving presentations, I was working as an engineer. I had to give presentations in front of management on a monthly basis, and I knew I wasn't good at it. Not because someone told me I wasn't good at it. It was after what happened after the presentations. I would get questions from the audience that I thought I'd answered during the presentation, but because I'm obviously didn't answer it well enough because now I'm getting these questions afterwards. And ultimately, eventually, I got I understood that this is something I needed to get better at. But
Yeah.
actually, I didn't understand it until my project that I was working on got canceled. That,
Wow,
that
that's a slap in the face, isn't it?
yeah. That gave me the wake up call. This whole giving presentations thing and persuading people to keep putting money into a project, maybe that's something I need to get better at. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of the other engineers, I saw them give presentations too, and they weren't all that much better at it than I was.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't mean to be rude, but that's an area where I think it's important to be blunt and be brutally honest because people are starting to think about laying their life on the line to go be a professional speaker, and we just shouldn't sugarcoat how difficult it is for most people. There's always exceptions. There's always outliers to everything you say, right? But for most people, it is an extremely difficult business, and most of us aren't as good as we think we are. And I would even put myself in that category. And I've been making a living as a speaker for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. Don, when people I think a lot of people, when they first start out and want to become speakers, there are a lot of programs out there that will help you in developing a speaker business. What are your thoughts on such programs, and what should people expect from such programs?
Oh yeah, there's some great programs, and then there's some that are ripoffs, and some people who are really good. Patricia Fripp would be a great example, or Karen McCullough, are both tenured professional speakers who know their stuff, who are highly respected. Patricia Fripp was the first female president of the National Speakers Association. She has online training, she has in-person coaching. She's a wonderful human being and a great person to work with. Same thing. I could say the same thing about Karen McCullough, except that she wasn't the president of NSA. But there are plenty of good speakers, good speaker coaches out there, and the National Speakers Association would be a good place to start the process of finding one. But be very, very careful because there are a lot of charlatans who are out there who want to take your money, who do a really good sales pitch, take your money, and don't give you anything of value, or don't give you anything that you couldn't get out of Toastmasters. And Toastmasters is an amazing organization. I'm a distinguished Toastmaster, and I can't say enough good about Toastmasters. But if you want professional coaching, the National Speakers Association is the place to start.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. There are quite a number of outlets out there and especially if you're aspiring and you really want to make a go of it, and you know there's a lot that you don't know.
Yeah.
You just figure there's these programs that are going to help you figure out things that you don't know, and you may pay them thousands of dollars, and at the end of
Yes.
the program, well, there's still a lot that I don't know.
Well, and there always will be, but I think the difference is that you look not at the recommendations because let's face it, we can all get good recommendations, good reviews, but you look at their credentials. And again, I go back to Fripp, who built an entire business based on her public speaking and teaching salespeople how to do presentations like what you were talking about, Neil. And then she morphed into becoming a speaker coach and very, very good at what she does. Orville Ray Wilson is another one who's been a long tenured speaker and has a good sense of what it takes to be a good speaker. So yeah, I mean there are quite a few outstanding coaches that are out there, but you just want to be very careful before you start handing over your money.
Indeed.
I have been taken. I think there's not a person in the National Speakers Association who hasn't given money to somebody and gotten something of questionable value from it.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate.
Yeah, but it's part of the process.
Indeed. Yeah, you live and learn for sure.
Yeah. Well, you live. Hopefully, you learn.
If you're doing it right, for sure.
Right.
For those who really want to make a go of being a professional speaker, Don, What do they need to have in place before they quit their jobs and become full-time professional speakers?
Well, I would say they need to have contracts for speaking engagements. I mean, why would you give up unless you have a lot of money? If you have enough money to survive for 2 or 3 years with very little or no income, then sure, go ahead and quit your job. But most of us aren't that fortunate, and so I would say um, build up a part-time business that becomes a foundation for your full-time business.
Yeah,
I would never, for me, I would not just quit and walk away unless I had some contracts.
right. Well, how do you balance having a full-time job and having a speaking business?
Yeah, that's tough. Um, it helps to have a good family support system in place. And maybe you join a Toastmasters group that has professional speakers in the Seattle area. There's a Toastmasters group. I think it's called Professionally Speaking, and it has professional speakers in it. Don't quote me on the name. That may not be right, but I think that's what it is. And so I'd find a group of other people who are also aspiring, who can be your support system as well as your family and some business associates. But that's a tough one, Neil. I mean, you want to have some business in place. You want to have some experience. You want to have a demo reel. That's a good comment too. That the demo reel, the speakers bureaus and the meeting planners will all tell you that what they want to see on the demo reel is not a bunch of flash and pizzazz and fancy effects and that sort of thing. They want to see you speaking. And so when you create a demo reel, you create a demo reel that's 5, 7, 10 minutes long, however long it needs to be, but it's of you speaking because that's what they buy. They've seen a gazillion speakers. They don't need to see a bunch of fancy effects.
Yeah, anybody can pay for the fancy effects, but you can't pay to be a good speaker, though.
Right, right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's not to say that the demo reel shouldn't be professionally edited because it should. It needs to represent you well, but it needs to be mainly you speaking.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. And yet there certainly is a issue or concerns that you could have, balancing that full-time job and a speaking business. Because with most full-time jobs, you get a certain number of paid days off. And are you able to do those speaking engagements with those paid days off? And if not, then there's only so many engagements that you can do.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough. One thing that I'll go back to is that if you currently are in a leadership position within your firm, you might want to think about approaching one of the professional seminar training companies. I mentioned SkillPath and Fred Pryor, but there's others that are out there about being a trainer for them. You're not going to be able to take their customers. They're going to make you sign an exclusive, so saying that you won't approach their customers. So you can't take their customers, but that gives you some control over your calendar. For example, with SkillPath, I think they scheduled 3 months out. So if you're working on speaking at a conference that takes place in December, you can block that date ahead of time and know that you'll be able to do it on that particular date because they won't schedule you for it. So
Indeed.
so that might be thinking about it, thinking out loud. That might be a better approach, even than trying to mix a full-time job with starting a speaking business. Maybe you start by working for one of the seminar training companies or some type of a job where you have some flexibility and control over your calendar.
Indeed. This has been a great conversation, Don. Thanks so much for being a guest. How can people
Oh,
get in touch with you?
Don at doncrawley.com, or you can just go to doncrawley.com or compassionategeek.com, and I'd love to have a conversation. Whether you want to just talk about starting a speaking business, or if you think that maybe my services could be of value to you, I'd love to talk with you.
Wonderful. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. You can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Don.
Thanks, Neil. You bet. Thank you.